Good Sunday morning to all of you. John here, Jason there, Maddie Cruz joining us in just a second, obviously, with the news that broke this morning as of 9:38. Press release from Atlanta United. Dismissed head coach Ronny Deila. Global search for a new permanent head coach will begin immediately. There's a quote from Garth Lagerwey that we'll get into in just a bit. Deila joined Atlanta United December 24 during his one season in charge. Atlanta United went 6-18-13 across all comps. And there was a note for those of us in the media for later in the week. So Maddie is going to be hopping in here in just a second, Jason. But obviously, from 30,000 feet, what are your first thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's hard to be from 30,000 feet in this world. We talked about it on 92.9 The Game, and Mike and I's reaction will be on Off the Woodwork here in just a little bit. It's not, you're not from 30,000 feet when you get to know somebody.
Yeah.
And Ronnie, somebody that I got to know over this past year, had great conversations with him, had great conversation with him on Thursday about what he wanted to see be different, what he was frustrated about the season. These are real people we talk about. And I think something that is extremely frustrating in the way we all consume sports. Everybody's guilty of it. If you're on the outside, the easiest thing to do is to yell about firing somebody. It's the easiest thing to do when your team's not winning the games you want them to win. And doing what we do, we get the opportunity to have a different perspective and see that these are human beings and see that these are people who have lives, have families, have kids, relocate, all of that to go try to be successful somewhere. And I think what is just awful for Ronnie in this situation is he tried everything to get the most out of this roster. He changed formations. He changed tactics. He got more conservative than he wanted to. He had them playing more in a counterattacking way at times than he would have liked. He consistently talked about wanting the team to be higher up the field with more numbers up the field, more intensity in the press, all of those sorts of things. He wanted all of that. And he never got it. And I don't think it was from a lack of trying. And I said it on 92.9 The Game. I'll say it right here. I think the roster let him down. I think the players' individual performances from many of them let him down and ultimately affected the results. Now, more often than not, that's going to cost the manager their job. You can change one manager as opposed to changing 30 players. But you're going to have to see some players change, and you're going to have to see a more robust roster. And that's something I said that I've already got a little bit of conversation on Twitter about. I was talking about the character of the team more of character probably wasn't the right word. I was probably looking for more of like personality, profile, those sorts of things. Ronnie mentioned it. Rob mentioned it. Gonzalo mentioned it. This team was too nice, too soft at times. Consistent across three managers. Very obvious. I feel like I was saying it alongside everybody before it became more of a conversation. All of them are accurate. All of them are right in this. And that is what ultimately did this team in this year. Because when you got past that initial surge of new faces, excitement, the crazy game against NYC, Latte Lot scoring goals early on, the buzz of Almiron back in Atlanta. Once you got past that and it wore off, I mean, we're talking probably 5-6 games in. Mm-hmm. When it got hard and you needed not to play for a 1-0 win, because that's never what Atlanta United should be playing for. They should be playing for 4-0 wins. They should be playing for big wins. But you needed a 1-0 win or 2 or 3 to grind through when it got hard. And you didn't have the players who were capable of doing that. And that's a shame because it ultimately cost Ronny Deila his job. And he's going to go on and be successful somewhere else. I'm not worried about that for him. He'll be fine. He understands the life of a football manager. He's been through these things before. But now who do you go get? Because you can't afford to sit and wait for very long. You've got to get this hire right. Big year next year with a World Cup in our city, with a lot of expectations now after 2 substandard seasons. It's a very high pressure-packed job. And I have no idea what direction they go.
Maddie now in, quote from Garth Lagerway. It was evident that our standard of play was not met this season, and together with our senior leadership team, we've decided that it was in Atlanta United's best interest to move the team in a different direction. Ultimately, we owe our fans a much better on-field product, and it is our unwavering commitment to provide that to this community as soon as possible. We want to thank Ronny for his time and commitment to the organization. Wish him well in his future endeavors, end quote. Maddie, you got to spend time with Ronny at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. You got to be there for press opportunity situations, and you were the first person that got to catch up with him when the home matches were over. Now that we have this decision that is about 50 minutes old, when I mentioned Ronny Deila to you and the season that Atlanta United had, this could honestly be two separate sound bites from you, but when I mention all of that together, what comes to mind for you?
First, I want to echo a lot of what Jason said. I think you hit the nail on the head for a lot of it. I think you've had it from Gonzalo, from Rob, and from Ronny talking about this team being too nice. And I think, you saw in players yesterday in that matchup, like Ronald Hernandez, like Bartosz Leash, putting everything out there, even in a game that didn't really matter in the standpoint of anything with the standings in the season. And I think you need more of that. You need more of those players who are going to just leave it all out onto the pitch. And I think individual performances this season did let the team down in a lot of moments. I do want to say, obviously being the first person to talk to Ronny Deila after matches on the field, he was a joy to talk to every single time. I had the opportunity just to thank him for his openness yesterday after I got done with my interview with him, because he was always open, always wanting to talk, even after some of those losses, some of those ties that, maybe it was, it just felt kind of a little bit more deflating, always took the time to talk to me after those games. And for that, I'm ever grateful, for his openness and his ability just to be able to talk about what's going on. His honesty too with everything. And it was really cool. It's my first real big season covering the team and to this extent. And I'm honored that it was with Ronny. I really am, because I think, just in talking to him, I learned a lot of things about being a broadcaster, being an interviewer, and I'm forever going to be thankful for him for that in every sort of way. And he was a tremendous guy. He was an absolutely great person. And I don't want this to in any way indicate any sort of thing about diminishing his character in any sort of way, because that's not anything of what this is. He was he was the best guy. He really was. And and it's like Jason said, results ultimately is what it comes down to in this situation. And you didn't get enough wins this season.
Yeah, I want to jump in on one thing, because now that people are starting to fire off takes about this and spilling some ink on it, I think there's a lot of people talking about Ronny Deila's tactics not working, and I just honestly think that that's wrong. I thoroughly think that's incorrect, and I think it is much more about individual performance than tactics. If you want to talk about tactics, then how did the team earlier on in the season, now it fell off, no question, but even still, how did the team produce so many expected goals? And how did the team concede fewer expected goals against, but then those numbers didn't match up the expected by wide margins on both sides? That's not saying the tactics are bad. That's literally saying the tactics were working to not give up big chances and to create good chances. Why do you not get those numbers to match up? Execution of the players on the field. I'm sorry. I think the idea about tactics is thoroughly incorrect, because this is coming. It doesn't make any sense. We saw changes in tactics. We saw different things tried to get better performances out of the group. Ronny wasn't asking them to do anything that was abnormal. There was nothing weird about playing in a 4-3-3 or sometimes shifting to a 3-4-2-1. Nothing strange about it. So I really push back on that. And I think it's unfair. Did Ronny connect with the players to get the performances that you would like to see? Maybe not. And that's a valid conversation to have. Was that, and he talked about it a little bit, Maddie, and I think he said it last night, in that he didn't have that foundation of the relationship with the players and himself and his staff that he wanted, and he never quite got there. That's a valid talking point. That's a valid part. He's a player, or he's a coach who comes from a different part of the world than some of the players that he's got. And if they don't find that common ground and that bond, yeah, that can end up being an issue. I don't think it was a major issue, but he said it didn't get to where he wanted it to get. I think he told us very early on he wanted to build a family atmosphere, an atmosphere of a team that was going to fight for one another, and he never quite got there. And that's a shame. But the idea to go into tactics, and this is coming up in multiple places. Look, that's an easy thing if you can't quantify it. I'm going to quantify it in a very specific way for you so this is understood. Atlanta United did not score as many goals as they should have scored according to expected goals over the whole season. I don't like pulling one game and making a big deal about it, but over the entire season, they were expected to score a whole lot more goals than they did. Over the entire season, they were expected to concede less goals than they did. Figure it out. I don't know what else to tell you. Tactics create those things. Mm-hmm. Execution gives you the numbers that end up on the scoreboard. Figure it out.
The quote, Jason, I found the quote from last night that you were referencing.
Thank you.
When he was asked on how he would describe the 25 season, we'll bring Jarrett Smith in a second. Quote, very disappointing, very tough mentally because we had so many hits to take, but you always have to get up and be positive to try and turn the circumstances around. I never felt like this team found the base to really get going. It's like building a house, and the foundation has to be there. You find it first, and then you start building, meaning the foundation. But I never thought that we did that, find the foundation, and then build the rest of the house. I think I see a lot of that now, some things we can build on, but that has been a very difficult situation to be in.
Let me sorry, one thing, because I just pulled the numbers up. I was trying to do this as I was ranting, and I couldn't do it.
Yes, that much.
Atlanta United was 16th in expected goals for what they created, 52.7. They scored 37 goals. Tactics? No. Goals allowed, expected goals allowed. They were the 9th best in the league in expected goals allowed. Defensively, how many goals did they give up? 62. You were underperforming by 15 goals versus your expected goals, and you were underperforming by 10 in expected goals allowed. Is that tactics? No, that's not. Get players who are going to perform better and make those expected goals turn into goals and make that tactical defensive setup that is the 9th best in expected goals allowed, make it actually hold up and not be the 26th best defense.
And it's one thing before I'll bring it over to Jarrett, who's our XG consultant, apparently, underneath the thing as well. I think it's something, too, you talk about the foundation, and a lot of that also comes, I think, from consistency in the roster, too, in those moments. And not even talking about performance, also talking about players available. How many times this season did we have a lot of starters that were supposed to come in and play be injured? Stian Gregerson was injured for a lot of the season. He got going towards the end and then picked up another one just before the end. And then Pedro Amador suffered with a couple injuries as well. So did Brooks Lennon. You had a lot of players who were in and out in those moments, and a lot of players that, it became difficult. You didn't have a consistent back line until towards the end of the season. And you saw the performances defensively get a little bit better. And that's because you had a little bit more consistency in that back line too. And that's another factor here too as well. It's the consistency all over. It's not just performance on the field. There's consistency also in the idea that I don't think we had a solid starting 11 every single game this season. I think there was always something a little bit different.
It had to be. Yeah. Injuries and performance were a huge thing. Go ahead, Jarrett.
No, I just everybody's here, so I'm here too. I didn't want to feel left out. That's
You're in an airport, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm back at a hotel. This has been a day because I got to the airport in what should have been plenty of time, but TSA in Atlanta took forever, and we missed our flight. So I'm back at a hotel because we're not flying out till tomorrow now. And then as I'm walking back, as I'm taking the train back, I get the email of landing night is part of way. It's like, well, what a day. What a day.
Yeah, and Jarrett, to Jason's XG point, and I'll lead it back
Yeah.
into you. It's a 30% gap from goals scored to XG. That there's a 30% gap in that number when it comes to
the XG can okay. I need to make sure that this is a thing that you all understand. The XG consultant thing is tongue in cheek. Do the same thing on Monday nights. Like it's just being dumb. It's not serious. Don't read into it, please. God, don't read into it. We're just being dumb and having fun because these are the kinds of things for people like me who don't like. This isn't my livelihood. Like I'm not playing the game. When the game is over, when everything is said and done, I have to go back to my life, to go back to being a dad and being a husband and all these things. So yeah, it's the XG thing is not serious. Don't read into it. So much of the issue here at hand is for me, and it has been an issue for a while, is execution. Because how many times did you watch this team and say, wow, how did he, like, I said it last night with Mondo, actually, with Emmanuel Latte Line, like, how did he not put that away? Or how many times early in the season did you have games where you watched the goal get conceded? Like, well, how did you not clear that? How did you not do a better job in that moment? And games come down to moments. Like, look, and goals change games. I know we've got to put a dollar in the jar whenever we say it, but like, those moments matter. And guys haven't been up for those moments. And sometimes you're going to get into weird tactical free zones where moments matter. How much you want to fight matters. How much you execute in the moment matters. And there hasn't been enough of that. And it wasn't just this year. It was last year too, where like it just how like, it was maddening where we watched this team and it's guys not executing. It's guys not doing the job the way you expect them to. And you can't fire the entire team. You can move on from the manager and you can say, you can put out a release of, look, wasn't to our expectations. This wasn't what we wanted, obviously. I mean, obviously you spent $40 million. You had high expectations. You spent the money for said expectations. And then when you didn't meet them, you made changes, but you can't fire the entire roster. Now, we've talked about it before, John, on the morning show. This winter is going to be chaotic because you have a lot of guys who have been here who are in option years or out of options. And it is either re-sign or walk for guys who you have seen on that team sheet for multiple years. But whatever you do going forward now, I think you're also you're looking at who you bring in staff wise. You're looking culturally, but you're also looking for you're also looking at that roster itself, and you're looking at not just what do they do well, but I'm looking at anyone I bring in. I'm asking, hey, when times were hard, how did they respond? Because so often I feel like we haven't seen the response with this group, with the last few groups, that you want to see when times get hard.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. And
No.
it's not something you can quantify on a sheet. It's not something that pops up on a spreadsheet when you put in an Excel formula. That's something you figure out by going and watching with your eyes and talking to people. And however you go look at this winter, because you will be looking at people, even if it's depth pieces, it's, okay, does he fit what we want? How does he respond when things are hard? Because too often it felt like the response wasn't the correct one. Carry on.
You had two players who overperformed their XG this season that scored more than one goal. Alexei Miranchuk and Bartosz Lisz.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
You were one of the top teams in expected assists. That's going even a step further. That goes, again, back to tactics and what you're creating. It was unacceptable. The performances were unacceptable. When you look at the roster for next season, the roster profile as of September 18th is published on MLSsoccer.com. I think you have to jump through a few hoops to get to it, but it is publicly available. Miguel Almiron is under contract through 27. Latte Lot through 28. Moranchuk through 27. Mosquera is out on loan, but he's under contract through next season. Alzate through 30. Better Call is on loan through next summer. You have to make a decision there. Gregerson through 27. Lennon is going into an option decision. Saba under contract through 26. Mihai through 28. Muyamba through 26. Sleesh through 28. TRA, you have a decision to make, an option at the end of this season. Amador through 26. Cohen, option now you have to decide on. Brad's retiring. Ronald, you have to decide on an option on Ronald Hernandez. You have to decide on an option for Cayman Togashi. We'll go into the supplemental roster. Afonso, you have 2 option years to decide on, 26 and 27. He's out of contract at 25. Chonqui's under contract through 28. Brendan through 27. Cobb, he is on loan. That's another decision that has to get made from multiple parties. Edwards, you have to make a decision on. He has 2 option years available for 26 and 27. Fortune, you have to make a decision on, option for 26. Gordon is under contract through 26. Hibbert, you have an option, but you have 3 years of options. You're picking that up. Riley, you have to make a decision on. There's 3 years of options on him. He's out of contract in 25, but you have the option. Sesek, you have the option for the next 2 years. Aiden Torres is under contract through 27. Cooper Sanchez through 26. That is your roster right now. You got 136,000 in GAM available to carry over. That's not a lot.
And that translates into a lot of decisions for the front office.
Hold on. I'll tell you this. That's not as many decisions as you might think. You can move guys who are under contract.
Right.
But you got to find somewhere to move them, or you've got to use 1 to 2 buyouts. Like, that's the challenge that you have, because your decisions are Lennon. Everybody that is out of contract, you have a decision on. You can keep them if you want. There's nobody purely out of contract. Lennon, TRA, Cohen, Hernandez, Togashi, Afonso, Edwards, Fortune, Hibbert, Riley, and Sesek.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your decisions. That's not the end of the roster that is going to make massive changes to the results next year.
And you have an organization that is going to be, as they admitted in the in the quote that was given in the press release, that it's going to be a worldwide search. And once again, Maddie, Atlanta United goes under the microscope because of the expectations, the self-expectations, expectations from the environment, from those close to the organization, 17s all across the board, the reputation that has been there with worldwide, basically, now with Atlanta United. So there are going to be a lot of folks on this planet that are going to be looking at Atlanta United's next steps here, and they are very major steps that have to be made.
I think for any manager, you look at Atlanta United, and Ronny Deila's talked about it. So many other managers, any players have talked about it too, coming here, talking to Anea and talking to Juan. 2 players who came in, towards the end of the summer window and said, absolutely, like it's unreal, what Atlanta has done in the grand scheme of things, especially for American soccer here. You look at the facility for one, an absolutely gorgeous facility. And it's one of those things, especially as you're looking for managers. I think, there are options, but it's figuring out what's the right fit. I think that's going to be the biggest thing too, is figuring out, who's going to come in and, help this team heading into 2026.
Jarrett, your thoughts about the going forward now? You mentioned the players and the idea of, in some Southern conversations, it's referred to as the want to gene. We've had that conversation. But this is going to be major decisions going forward for coach, staff, all of that, and a lot of folks are going to be watching.
No, we've had this discussion. I have affectionately referred to as, I need I need a roster full of guys that got some bitch in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I need. I need someone who's going to be a bitch when the going gets tough.
Yeah.
And how you do that in the managerial search remains to be seen, because look, you have gone through numerous personalities, and it kind of feels like we are with the masses in a very Goldilocks situation of, well, that one's too tough, that one's too soft, that one's not just right.
Yeah.
So, what do you want? And I don't know what the answer is, because there are managers out there, and there are managers you might really like that might not be a good fit. And it might not be a good fit for what you have on this roster. We literally just watched Ange Postecoglou last 30 some odd days taking a job he should not have taken with a roster that does not fit how he plays and a culture that does not fit how he exists. So you got to be careful to not only get someone who can command that locker room and get the most out of guys, but also who fits what they do. Because even within the league, we saw this when Chris Armas went to Toronto. Chris Armas took over Toronto back in the day when he should not have. And he should have gone somewhere else, because that was still kind of the Greg Vanney roster. It wasn't built to play that Red Bull press, that gegenpressing. But you need to find someone who fits what you have, because you can find some homes for new guys. You can use buyouts. Like me personally, if you twisted my arm, one of my buyouts is Stian Gregerson, because availability is unability. And he too often has not been able to stay healthy, and it's muscle injuries. And it sucks, because I think when he's on the field, he has the capacity to be very good and to be a leader. But if he's not on that field, I need someone who can be on the field for me. Does it mean you take a bath on some of these big signings you made? It might. It might be a thing of you go to them like, hey, this ain't working. Give me a list of places you want to go, and we're going to see what we can do. And yeah, you might lose money. You're going to do right by these kids. And I say kids because they're like mostly in their 20s and 30s, and it's younger than me. You're going to do right by them as much as you can, because you also do right by your roster. And you do right by them for one of the reasons, so that you maintain a reputation. It's the same reason back in the day that you brought Evo Mosquera back on loan from Defensa Justicia, because they were like, hey, this loan ain't working, take him back. You could have left them on red, but then you damage your reputation with Defensa, and you damage your reputation with Argentina by making a tough decision of bringing him back. You maintain that reputation down the line. Mm-hmm. So you maintain that reputation by, you go to these kids, and if it ain't working, say, hey, this ain't working. You give me a list of places you want to go. We're going to see what we can do, because this ain't working. And maybe you do that. Maybe you look at this and go, hey, we swung big and it didn't work, and we need to make changes. And if that means we end up in the red on a couple of these deals, then so be it. Because you'll do that if it means you get stability and culture and performances.
You've got enough room in this roster to be able to, take a hit on some guys financially if you have to, selling them for less than you paid, those kinds of situations. Everything should be on the table. I think there's an expectation that people always have in the sport about the coach goes and gets the players. That's not how it works. It's not how it should work anywhere. Coaches are going to have a shorter lifespan than front office people, than on general managers, sporting directors, presidents, CEOs, all that. Coaches are going to come and go more than those people. If you want to have an identity, you need to have the people who are going to be around longer building your rosters. That affects who you develop as well in terms of academy and who comes up. If you want to have identity, which is what this club wants to have, it's what any good club wants to have, it's got to come from that. It can't come from a coach wanting to bring in 10 players. Look at Nottingham Forest right now. That team's identity was Nuno Espirito Santo and being defensive and being a counterattacking team. And then they made a stupid hire for what they were working with in hiring Ange Postecoglou, who plays in a completely different way, like almost the exact opposite. And oh, shock, it wasn't successful. Well, duh, we told you that when the hire was made. Ange didn't have the players that he needed there. So
almost
I think
a suicidally different style of play.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. But here's the thing, like, I think your expectation so often in this conversation in this league is, oh, hire the coach and then get the players. No, you build the roster to fit the way you want your club to play, and you hire the coach that fits that. That's what you do. Atlanta United has to hire a coach that fits how they want to play. Ronny Deila was supposed to be that. Ultimately, that wasn't possible. And a big reason why is what I said earlier. You got two guys who overperformed the XG that they accumulated during the season. You were 15 goals less than your XG you accumulated. You gave up more goals than you should have. So you don't score as much and you give up more, you're not going to win many games. Mm-hmm. Flat out. You didn't get what you wanted out of this hire. The results, you had to make a change. I don't love it because I don't like to see good people lose their jobs when it's not entirely their fault. And it's not about pushing buttons to me. It's not about like, what's he going to do? He yelled at people. He didn't yell at people. He put an arm around people. He tried everything. I watched it. I actually watched a lot of the training sessions this year, watching what he was doing, what his staff was doing, what they were saying to people. I watched him be hard on people. I watched him comfort people and try to lift them up. I watched him try every button you could push. Ultimately, these are pros, guys. You shouldn't need a coach. This isn't high school. This isn't club. This isn't the coach is going to elevate all these players. And this, no. Little incremental things, sure. Bartosz Lee sure looked like a different player this year. Mm-hmm. Think he got elevated. Some other players who got elevated. Ronald Hernandez is playing some of the best soccer of his life in the second half of the season. Gets called back into the Venezuelan national team. There's lots of guys that elevated here. There's also lots of guys who didn't play well. And I don't look at that as purely on Deila. The results are why he lost his job. No problem with that. Everybody knows what you sign up for. But you have to go get a manager, and you have to go build a better roster for that manager to work with that gives you more quality. You're going to have to get probably 2 fullbacks, at least one. You're going to have to figure out how to score more goals. Because ultimately, that's what's going to decide your success. I think you got the midfield. I think you got the center back situation set up. You got to figure out what you're going to do at goalkeeper. And I love Jaden Hibbert. But if we're going to sit here and demand results and demand trophies next year, you're asking a lot of a young goalkeeper who's got less than double-digit starts in his professional career at the first team level.
You're also asking a lot of your midfielders. You're also asking a lot of your midfield, and I'm fine with that. Like,
you're asking a lot of everybody to protect a young goalkeeper if that's where you're going to go. And
I'm full team play the kids. Like
to a point, but we can't do the play the kids and oh wait a minute, they didn't win every game. Fire everybody. You can't do both. Can't. So look,
but you're also asking a lot of Jay will be coming off an injury. You'll be asking a lot of him.
You got to make a decision on if you're going to keep Jay. You got to make a decision on if you're going to keep Riley. Those guys are going into options. You got a lot of
setting expectations for Coop.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah. I mean, Cooper's a World Cup U17 player right now. He could continue to grow. You've got Aiden Torres under contract. That's another former youth national team player who got passed by Cooper Sanchez. You got talent. You've got things to work with. You've got a base. To me, you've got to get your top players that you are paying the most money to, that you are putting the most expectations on. You've got to get them to perform like it. And that's going to define your success. And you've got to get a manager who will play the way that Atlanta United wants to play, which is attacking, which is scoring goals, which is on the front foot, being offensively minded. Okay, go hire a manager who's going to fit that profile. Go upgrade this roster and cross your fingers, because that was supposed to be the case this year. And it didn't happen. And it sucks. And it's why you're in the situation you're in. It was supposed to be the case in 2024. Remember the expectations at the beginning of last season. And it didn't happen. And you went through 2 different managers. And you had a great run in the playoffs, and that was a blast. But you got in on the last day on decision day. 2 seasons where you started the season with huge expectations, and it didn't deliver. And there's a lot of common players over those 2 seasons. You're going to have to make some changes one way or another. And you're going to have to get aggressive with it. And all of that being aggressive, Can't add any players until January. You can start talking, you can start figuring things out. But what the market is right now on October 19th isn't going to be what the market is on December 19th. So, like, the player side, I don't know what that's going to look like just yet. The coaching side, Tata Martino's not working right now. Giovanni Savaresi's not working right now. Jim Curtin's not working right now. Ange Postecoglou's not working right now. Trying to think of anybody else off the top of my head. Those are probably the biggest one. Peter Vermes isn't working right now. Those are probably your biggest names at the moment. There's always the possibility of a manager that we know but we don't know well, who's in Argentina, who's in Brazil, who's in Ecuador, who's in France, who's in Italy. Like, there's always that possibility. But Savaresi, Vermes, Martino have all had success in this league. Postecoglou is a great manager who really took a bad job at Nottingham Forest. Really bad idea to take that job. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. And I hate that this is probably the off season that I have the least clarity in what's going to happen next.
Quickly, do you mind if I address the elephant in the room with one of those rumors?
Go ahead.
And this isn't saying no to anybody. I'm not trying to shoot down anyone's ideas, because I adore Tata Martino. He was always incredibly kind, incredibly educational, and a very dry wit. Also cold-blooded when he had to be, which is what helped with that locker room year 1 and 2. However, Tata Martino has stayed in a place for 2 or 3 years in his career. Go look up a CV. He generally leaves after 2 years. You might get 2.5 out of him. If you do that, and if you try and do a reset and you bring in Tata, I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not going to tell you that it's a bad idea. I'm not going to.
One thing to keep in mind on Tata, there reportedly 2 weeks ago, there's a verbal agreement with Los Angeles to take over LAFC at the end of the season. Verbal is what was said by
Garcia Groba, who is an S-tier Argentine source. And
top tier. TSA reported it. Herman Garcia Groba, like it's that feels legit. Verbal agreement is what everybody said.
Let's say you make it happen. He is a guy who stays in place for 2 years. You need to immediately, as he is here, you're going to be succession planning, because love Tata to death. God love him. God save the man. He does not stay in a place longer than 2.5 years. You are succession planning at the same time, because otherwise you were in the exact same situation in 2 years. And maybe there's trophies, maybe there's fun, maybe there's great things, but you would be in a exact same situation in 2 years. And maybe that's the case with a lot of big name coaches. I don't know, like Peter Vermes, guys like Peter Vermes don't just walk in the door, who stay at a place for 2 decades. And I hate the way it ended for him in Kansas City because of what he meant to Kansas City, and the way he's ingrained in that culture there. But my only thing would be to say, if you go get a Tata Martino, let's say that verbal's not on paper, and you get him, you're going to be succession planning right away.
Yeah, you have to.
Yep. So anyway, carry on.
Maddie, last thoughts are yours.
Oh, I mean, I'll just reiterate what I said before. Ronny Deila was a class act. He was. Anytime I chatted with him, he was a joy to talk to, just to learn a lot. I think it's funny too. I think learning a lot about myself as an interviewee, as a broadcaster. I think I also learned a lot about the game from him too, and just chatting with him after matches about what he wanted in certain elements too. I'll forever take that because it's going to make me a better media personnel. It's going to make me a better broadcaster in the future. I wish all good things for Ronny Deila. He's a class act. He's a great person, and it's really unfortunate because I hate it for him, because he's a great person, and my dogs are losing their minds right now. Sorry. It's raining. I'm sure they heard something and they're going wild. No big deal. I think they're echoing actually what I'm saying. So
maybe.
Thanks, Zoe and Finn. Y'all, appreciate y'all having my back. No, I think Ronny Deila is a class act, and he was such a great person, and it sucks. But yeah, I mean, now you look ahead to 26, who's going to be that person to fill this spot? What's it going to look like? We'll find out, I guess.
Yep. And the first date for rosters, for those of you that are following along in your calendars, is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That's when you have to mention who is getting options and who is not. So that'll be the first date on the calendar. All right, that's a Sunday morning with us. Obviously, we'll discuss it more on SDHAM tomorrow morning, 9:05 Eastern. I know Abe Gordon's going to be dropping by, and we'll discuss it starting with him as he drops in on his normal Monday thing. For Jarrett, for Jason, for Maddie, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us here on a Sunday morning. That is SDH early morning style weekend. Play it safe, everybody. Mucha placha. I'll see you tomorrow.